and welcome to episode 220 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on what's going to be a fun night, sort of a two-part discussion. We're first very briefly going to go through some Kentucky Derby future bets that have been coming out recently, and then we're going to deep dive into the late pick 5 at Oaklawn Park this Saturday, with one very nice stake race and 4 other good races. Late pick 5 is going to be excellent, and we'll be discussing it. Please make sure you subscribe on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. After you do that, hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arrive, and then smash that thumbs up button. We'd appreciate it. All of that will help us here at the HHH Racing Podcast. Of course, on the bottom of the screen, my Twitter handle, at @HKravitz. And scrolling right now on the bottom of the screen, my email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. The Power Picks, you guys know this stuff already. It's been fantastic. If you're not familiar with the Power Picks, look below the video player. It's basically a tip sheet, $4 a weekend. It's been excellent. $2.59 ROI, as you can see there in 2022. We have a great website. It's being updated by our wonderful co-host Pete Visco all the time. We've got new sponsors. We've got a brand new show that the three of us will talk about that premiered last night. That was awesome. So congratulations to those guys. We'll throw a shout out to them here in just a minute together with the three hosts here. But Pete's updating the website all the time. It is fantastic. Also, a few quick other items here. There's a big Hawthorne Contest, and I am playing in it this weekend. If you're interested, go to hawthorneracecourse.com. It's only $200. There is no entry fee. You do need to be at the OTBs here in Chicago live. So if you're interested in this Hawthorne Contest, you'd have to, and you're not in town, but you're in the Midwest, feel free to drive up to the Chicago area. I will be at one of the OTBs. I'll be the Crazy Poor OTB. No, I'll be at the Oakbrook Terrace OTB. I'm sorry. I'll be the Oakbrook Terrace OTB this Saturday. Kyle Roscoe will be there as well. Kyle's trying to qualify for the NHC for the first time. I'm trying to double qualify. So hopefully that'll go well for us this Saturday. If you're interested in the Hawthorne Contest, that is a great thing. And then also, of course, coming up Saturday, January 28th, which is only 2.5 weeks from now, it's Pegasus Day, and we're going to have a live pool party as we did for Travers Day. That's going to be from the Crazy Poor OTB in in Villa Park, Illinois. Myself, Matt Miller, Kyle Roscoe. I think Jim Miller is also going to be there. We're going to be live on YouTube. I'm assuming Pete and Paul will be joining us at some point for the pool party as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. So we got a lot going on here on the show as I just look through the cavalcade of things that I want to cover. And I think that is going to cover it. So I think that's about it. Without further ado, let's bring on my wonderful co-hosts. First of all, from the great state of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco, and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and award-winning journalist, we can now say, from the Saratoga Special, Mr. Paul Halloran. Guys, how are we doing tonight?
What's happening?
Good evening.
Paul, we got to start with you, sir. We've had a lot of great successes on this show. The three of us have had successes. I had fortunate to be on TVG and FanDuel, done well in some contests. Pete has, hit the Meadowlands pick 4 in 2002. Racing.
Sounds right.
I'm just kidding. Pete's had a lot of great scores himself and done a lot of cool things in this game. But Paul Halloran, you, sir, are topping the cake right now. If people are not familiar, please tell everyone. I know you're very humble, but we got to share this news about you and a wonderful recognition that you got due to your writing.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I found out when the press release came out last week. They have the Eclipse Awards, as you know, are coming out, I believe, 2 weeks from tonight, if I'm not mistaken. The ceremony is. And there is a writing category. There are only 2 writing categories, only 2 awards, feature and news. And anyone could submit their own stories. You can submit up to 2 in each category. So any one person can submit a maximum of 4 stories. And so I submit every year, at least for the last several years. And in the news enterprise writing category, first of all, the most important thing is Tom Law, who was our managing editor at the special, was the winner for his tremendous story in Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred on early voting, winning the Preakness. And there were 2 honorable mentions, of which one of them went to me for my Codys Wish winning the Forgo story. So it was a pleasant surprise. I had no idea till the press release came out last Friday. But as I say, there are a lot of entries, and I'm going to guess in this particular year there were probably more than one entry on stories written about Codys Wish. So, and NBC won in the one of the multimedia categories for the phenomenal feature they did on Codys Wish and Cody Dorman on the Breeders' Cup broadcast. So, that was as I said to Tom Law, I'm honored to finish underneath you in the trifecta.
Oh, well, it's amazing. And we all know, of course, your appearances on this show has now vaulted you up into that category, into the pantheon of writing greatness with all the recognition that you get.
Yes.
But in all seriousness, Paul, it's going to work the other way around, I'm sure, eventually when you get that Eclipse Award. And we can proudly say that we have an Eclipse Award-winning journalist on the show as one of our co-hosts, Pete. To get national recognition is pretty impressive. We all love Paul. We know how talented he is as a writer, Pete. But to get that recognition, from the Eclipse people is really quite amazing, Pete.
Yeah, and plus it was such I know just from Paul talking about it so much during the Codys Wish run, it was such a personal story as well. So it probably feels good to get recognition for something that, opened the eyes to a great story and a great situation that sort of went on even beyond. So for anybody who wants to read this story and Paul's prior story on Codys Wish, or subsequent story on Codys Wish, and another article on there as well, if you go to our website under the articles tab, there's actually the press release that Paul is speaking of. I assume it's pretty similar on the NTRA website. And then the article that got him nominated, and also a couple other articles. So there's links to everything. There's links to the websites. There's links to the Saratoga special. So you can go on there and you can read Paul's work.
A lot of people don't know this, although I've mentioned a few times on the show, that although I am a high school math teacher and I love what I do, I've been doing it for 26 years. I was a journalism major in college and I wanted to be the next Harry Carey, for those who go back a little bit. So I had envisions of being on TV sports journalism, either, behind the camera, at a desk or maybe at a game. And so I know about journalism and I know about writing, and Paul, we're not just saying that, because you're friends of ours, you're on the show, but Paul does a great job. Anything you can get from Paul, his writing is fantastic. And I know you don't want to say too much right now, Paul, but your journey with Codys Wish might not be over yet. Again, we don't want to say too much right now, but when the time is right, you might have some things to say further about the Dormans and Codys Wish.
Yeah, no, I'm not done with that story for sure. And I don't know that any of us will ever be done with the story. But it hit home. As you know, I have a special needs daughter, Martha, who at any time could make an appearance running through the background here. But they're just such great people, Howard. And they've done a million interviews and they've handled it all. They've been very open about their situation, and the story of the horse has been well documented in Cody's connection. But there's a whole other story of what that young man, now he just turned 17, what that young man and his parents have been through, starting with a doctor in the first weeks of his life telling them that he wouldn't live to be 2. So they weren't ready to accept that, so they moved on to a different doctor, a different hospital. So yeah, they could be more to follow. But yeah, Howard, I'm thrilled because I walked in literally off the street, East Street. For those of you who've been to Saratoga, East Street, which runs perpendicular to the Union Ave entrance to the track, and where the Saratoga Special humble offices are just before you get to the Fasig-Tipton sales pavilion. And I literally walked in off the street in the summer of 2018, and Joe Clancy and Tom and Sean Clancy were all hard at work and basically said, I'd like to work for you guys. So they gave me some work starting in 19, and that has led to work with Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred, which is the publication Tom won for. This is a recognition for the special. Those guys have all won eclipses. I believe all the stuff that they've won for has been in other publications. So Tom was saying how this is really great for the special. This is maybe the first time an actual Saratoga Special story has gotten this type of recognition. And I mean, you see, I got the hat on. I have hats made. I have shirts made. I'm really, really proud of that affiliation. Those guys really do it right. And their alumni roster, by the way, that's a whole other show you could do with Gabby Gaudet and Travis Stone and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really, to whatever degree it, brings some positive light on what those guys do and what I try to contribute to in my little way. That's really the most gratifying part.
It's fantastic. You saw a lot of people, Trish, Ralph Conti, Christine Race, Jim Pilar. We put their comments up, guys. Wanted to congratulate you, Paul. Now, the other thing I want to talk about before we get into our Derby prep here. Last night, we had the premiere of Bettin and Boozin. Host Kyle Roscoe did a fantastic job with Charlie Freeman and Patrick Kunzel. I know we all checked it out. We were all chiming in with our little chats and had some fun with that. Nice to see some sports action. We all love sports. Pete, I know you got involved from a betting angle. Mm-hmm. I thought they did a great job, and it was a lot of fun. And it went longer than it normally will because of all the intros and other things, but had a great response, Pete, with the show last night.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, and it's something different because, I mean, everybody, like you said, especially NFL playoff time, if you're betting on horses, odds are a lot of people are betting on other stuff as well. So it's good for us to tackle that. And those guys did a fantastic job, and they went pretty deep on each of the games, which was good. I mean, again, it's the first weekend of the playoffs. It's a great weekend. And then also to lead into a pick four on Friday and a Friday cards that we usually don't touch on the shows. So now you get stuff for Fridays, a card on Friday, a card on Saturday, and the games. I mean, it was fantastic. And Kyle, kudos to him. We all know how tough it's tough running the show, especially when you're hitting the buttons and you're trying to move from segment to segment and all that stuff. It just doesn't come completely natural if you haven't done it. So he did a great job, and everybody did a great job on the show. And it's only going to get better as we go.
It's going to get better. And Paul, I haven't even brought this up with you guys, and we're going to move on here. But, we have some sports knowledge here combined on this screen. I think, for the Super Bowl and some of the big events, NCAA tournament, I think we'll throw our proverbial betting hat into the mix, and we can talk about a little pro sports. If those of you that are watching got a great audience right now, if you'd like us to dabble a little bit into some big events, please let us know. If you say, no, these guys can only do horse racing, let's just stick with that, you can let us know that too. Kentucky futures. When I bring this up on the screen, Paul, have you bet any futures before? Do you have any interest before, at this time of year, or do you like to wait, if at all, until maybe a month or two before the Derby?
I have a lot of interest because I think it is a very interesting concept. I think from a gambling point of view, it is really pretty much a fool's errand, especially this early. If you're going to bet someone this early, you got to be in that 50-1 or above range because, you got prep races to get through, points. And frankly, in these future bets, Howard, it's as much a challenge to get them in the gate as it is to win the thing because, we're dealing with dozens and dozens and dozens of horses now to get down to 20. Yeah, it's really hard to win the 20-horse race. I get it. But, to get in the gate, and, how many times have we seen favorites or logical horses scratch, the day before, the week before, 2 weeks before. So, but I do think it's very interesting. I am with you on the Tappet Trice bandwagon. We'll get that bet in one way or the other. And we'll talk about it when we get to it. But, I'm always a sucker for horses. I just wrote today about a horse who won I want to race at Parks of all places. That
Mhm.
if I could get it like 200 to 1 right now, I would. But we'll save that for when we talk about it.
Yeah, you see what we see on the screen, everyone, are the odds at the Caesars and at Circa. There are a lot of places in Vegas, and Paul, this sort of relates to our previous discussion or hope, last week. There are a lot of places that do not take bets right now on the Derby, like Westgate, for example, where I had a friend stay, doesn't take any bets until March, and other places. But Pete, most of the horses on this list are zero guarantee to get into the Derby by points. Now, Forte, I think, has 40. I haven't even looked at it recently, but Forte is pretty much in the Derby based on points because he won the juvenile and some other things. But of course, he's got to be healthy, and he's not going to be running until March, from what I understand. Is there anyone on this list, Pete? And again, I don't want to take too long tonight, but is there anyone on this list that you are fascinated by, interested, anything you fancy on this list right now that you'd be interested in betting?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a Derby futures better. I mean, I don't really like the futures market in most sports just because I'm sort of don't have the patience for it to wait for the ticket to come through. But I was looking at a couple, and the couple horses I like, you actually just scrolled by one, was Giant Mischief, who I'm not 100% sure is going to want the distance, but I just like that last race. He had a miserable trip. He still came on. He broke badly, was dead last, was outside the whole way, and still sort of had some run at the end. Now, again, I don't know if he's going to get the 1.25 miles, but if I'm looking at Circa's odds at 50 to 1, that could be worth a play. And then we saw this week that Extra Anejo was coming back, who he's right there. I guess actually what's funny here too is you can go price shopping if you could bet these in person. I mean, you look at Extra Anejo, if you like him,
Absolutely,
you go to Circa and take the 40 to 1, obviously, instead of the 15. And
for sure,
he was so dominant in that maiden special weight win, then had some physical issues. Now it looks like he's back in training, and hopefully he can get to the track and stay healthy, and then we can see what he can do.
Yeah, if people in the chat, I want to bring up I'm going to try and involve some more chat. I thought Kyle did a great job bringing up people in the chat. We probably don't do enough, guys, to be honest. Trish Smith mentioned that National Treasure was disappointing, but he got a bit of a weird trip. We're not going to take a look at it, but he was sort of inside, guys, and then he lost ground and tipped out and galloped out very well. I'm not giving up on National Treasure, but I do understand that he was the favorite Baffert, and then the other Baffert and the other Baffert ended up winning the race, which is crazy. Jim Pilars will be in Vegas beginning February 1st.
Stay tuned, Jim.
Oh, Jim.
You got a shopping list, Jim.
Get that PayPal ready.
Jim, I think we'll be in contact with you about that. And also, Kyle just wants to jump in. Thanks so much for the kind words. It was a ton of fun. Looking forward to getting some contest plays for Saturday. Absolutely, because Kyle's playing the contest. So Penn State Scott is here tonight. If I can bet trainers, actually, I don't know if you can. I don't think you can. Cox with both fits. You can bet sires, though, guys. We're not going to get into the details. Quickly, let's talk about the horse that I'm interested in. And Paul, I think you're interested in this horse as well. Tapit Trace is a horse I've mentioned on the show. Matt Bernier has mentioned. Only a main breaker. His only 2 lifetime starts. You see him at the bottom of the screen there, 80 to 1, 65 to 1. Has worked twice, by the way, Paul, down at Palm Beach Downs at Pletcher's Training Center. I would guess, Paul, and I haven't heard, but my guess, total speculation, is that he'll run in like an N1X, like on Pegasus weekend, and then go to like the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby. That would be my guess. They could run him the Holy Bull, but that's coming up relatively soon, and I'm not sure he's getting ready for that. And Pletcher doesn't usually jump in with main special win right into a stake race. So I guess we'll see. He's a long-winded horse, Paul. He doesn't have a lot of gate speed right now, but he's bred unbelievably. And I think there's big upside there. The last thing I'll say, guys, by the way, there's Reincarnate, who won the Sham upset the sham there for Baffert. You see Baffert's all over the place, but they're going to have to be
I
transferred.
do like Faustin too as a Baffert. I don't know what they're going to do with him,
Yeah.
but he's a gray horse who came from behind. So immediately I like that. So, but
Yeah.
you never know with the Bafferts what they're going to do because he has a couple good ones, and who knows.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen there, guys, but there's a lot of choices. The last thing I want to say before we get into handicapping is next weekend, guys, is Pool 3, Kentucky Derby pool for Twin Spires, Pool 3, right? So who knows who's going to be on this list? Paul, perhaps Tappa Choice will be on that list. There's no guarantee, though. I don't know. If not, I think our good friend Jim Pilar's will be making a little wager for us. Blazing Sevens is another horse I just want to throw out there for people to consider. Chad liked him on this show. He was disappointing last year in the Breeders' Cup. Won the Champagne, right, Paul? Won the Champagne for me.
He's going to win the Belmont. He's going to win the Belmont, Howard.
Okay. We'll see. He has not worked back yet, I don't think, because I'm looking at the work tab, Paul, quite a bit now, especially for these horses. That's a small concern. I don't know. We'll see what happens, guys. Let's get on to the pick 5 at Oaklawn. And I'm sorry, I'm hesitating because whoops, I actually have to get to the entries, guys. So as I get to the entries, Pete, you sent me a very interesting email. You do not. We all value your picks quite a bit, Pete, and I know you're usually a pretty confident guy. You didn't like the sequence. You just don't like your own picks. You had a busy day.
No,
well, a bit negative with your email today.
It was a combination of all those. I was working a little more than I wanted to at my day job, and okay. I just didn't. I felt like I thought it was a great sequence to bet because I didn't think there was a lot. I mean, there's maybe one real standout horse, but some of those races I sent these guys a text and it was like, I think it was a 9-horse field. And I think when I did my first pass, I had 8 of the 9 as potential winners. So I was just having a hard time going through and sort of narrowing. So, but it's probably better. When I like the picks, they crap the bed. So maybe this will be an opposite day. So we'll go with that.
Well, we'll see. Well, guys, I think. Do you hear something? I think they're coming onto the track to start our pick 5 at Oaklawn Park. Hold on a second. Oh my goodness! I buried the gosh darn it.
That was a butcher.
Where's Kyle when you need him? Hold on.
Let's get a real host.
Okay, here we go. They're coming onto the track for the pick 5. All right. Well,
you can fix that in post.
That transition sucked. Okay, we'll have to we'll work on that one. Look at Paul's just disgusted. Paul, we can't see what that is, by the way. I have no idea what you're trying to show us.
It was the call to post. It's my ringtone.
All right. Well, we're gonna work on the call to post. We got to add some things to the show, guys. Here we go.
Producer.
Yeah, that would probably be that would be a bad idea. Wow. Okay. Of course, Kyle's got to chime in. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. We won't mention any of the mistakes that were possibly made last night on your show. All right, pick 5, guys. Here we go. Race 6, about 2:55 Central, so it's gonna be about 3:55 Eastern Standard Time. Let me get up. There's the scroll there for our picks. This is claimers 30 down to 25. They're going 6 furlongs. No conditions here. We got a big field of 9. Moreline favorite is 8-5 for Chris Hartman and David Cabrera. It's the number 2 Ash Flat. Gotta be careful with that. Pete, we're gonna go with you first. You're gonna go with the number 6, Gozilla. And Paul has this horse second for Norm McKnight and Rafael Bejarano, a very interesting horse.
Yeah, I'll be curious to hear what Paul has to say as well. I mean, if you look, depending on how many, right now, if you expand it to all races, you could see some dirt form. But if you're looking just at the last few, you only see scent form. But if you expand to all there, I like the fact that if you're looking at this horse's earlier races, wait, you're on the wrong.
What did I do? What is going
Boy,
on?
you're just butchering stuff. I think he's worried, Paul, that Kyle's on his corner now is a better.
I would think so.
So
Wally
he's rattled now. Yeah, he's Wally Pippin. I think we can have to make a trade here. But so if you look down there, look at how this horse started. He starts in the maiden special weight, rolls, then goes straight to the hopeful, then the champagne. Then he sort of goes off the rails a bit. You assume something happened because he's off the track from July 20 to February 21. Yeah. Comes back so-so. But then now he's just in really good form. And yeah, it's all on synth. But if you look at his sire side, he looks like just percentage-wise, he's better on dirt than synth, at least from a breeding perspective. You could make the case, I should say, if nothing else. So I figure I'll take a shot with this one, that if he can regain that old dirt form and he's actually in form on the synth now and his figures aren't too far off, I'll take this one at a price.
I think he's interesting. Paul, I'm sure you agree with all that, but you are going to go with the 7 Slam Dunk Sermon for Asmussen and Castillo. And I think, I don't know if you're going to mention or Pete's going to mention it, but Castillo has been riding well for Asmussen, sort of like first call, second call, along with Santana at Oaklawn.
Yeah, my pick is how it is predicated. I mean, I think you're supposed to try to beat the 2 here, aren't you? At 8-5 or around there. I mean, you know, he does put 2. He got claimed for 50, and then for 32, it was a voided claim, which means something was up. He wins by a head. He runs a big number again last time. But, you know, that last race, there were like 6 horses to come out of it who have run again. 5 of them have lost, and the one who came back as a winner was at 60-1. I don't know. I will use the horse defensively because he could just be the best, and I do like Daredevil as a sire, and the horse is 2 for 3 at Oaklawn. So in the pick 5, I'll use him as a defensive A, which is probably not the smartest thing to do. But in the body of the race, I'm dying to try to beat him, and I think the 7. You mentioned him. You know, he ran an 80 last time, and a few points off what the 2 ran. You know, Asmussen, numbers off the claim, his numbers are in all circumstances are good. Although he's off to a very slow start at Oaklawn. If you look at those numbers, by the way, 3 for 58.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, which is unusual. But, you know, a guy like Castillo, you know, obviously with that type of opportunity is going to ride his eyeballs out to try to get more business from Asmussen. So, you know, my picks, which was 7, 6, and then 2. My picks are predicated on trying to beat what I think is a pretty vulnerable favorite that you picked, Howard. So tell us why I'm wrong.
Oh, hold on. I was just saying, Paul, on that 7, I had it's a small sample size stat, but Asmussen, Castillo, and then the Asmussen owner was 3 for 7 wins, 5 for 7 in the money with a $4.60 ROI first after the claim. So I like
That's
that
what
combo.
I'm talking about,
yeah,
Pete.
I like that combo. Yeah, so because I had this horse, he was teetering between my 3rd and 4th spot, and he's actually on my pick 5 ticket. So I'm 100% with you on this one.
I am using the 7, guys. I have a lot of the 7 is a B, the 6 is a B. You know what? I hate taking chalk, especially in a race like this, guys. But you know, lately for me, I've had some ups and downs from a betting perspective. I mean, the power picks have been great in general. My own personal betting's been decent. I've had some misses. The misses I've had, guys, recently, and maybe I shouldn't say this or shouldn't think this because of what's been happening recently isn't necessarily an indication what happens long term. These races that look like there's a lot of speed, they're not falling apart, guys. I don't know if it's maybe Oaklawn will be different. I don't know. It's just Ash Flat is in really good form right now. I understand the voided claim. Like, I get everything you're saying, but he ran really well after the voided claim, Paul, from the 12 hole into a fast pace. Now he's got the 2 hole. He's got he's in theory going to get better trip. I thought the only real speed he's got to contend with here, I think it was at the 5, or no, it wasn't the 5.
4. The 4.
The 4,
the 4 has to go, though, you think, right? I mean,
but
he's got no other shot.
And
yeah.
He's cheaper and he's slower. And you know what? I don't know if the 2 is going to get loose, but I don't think the 2 really needs to get loose. Listen, I don't love this pick, guys. I got the 2 as a lone A. Just thinking if it's not the 2, it could be a lot of others. Yeah. The other one I want to mention, and I've got some I had some silly juice before I started the show or something. I don't know. Maybe I got some stuff from the Bettin and Boozin guys, but I have some weird opinions tonight. Can we talk about the 8 for a second? Lake Radio. I'm going to go full screen here. If it's not the 2, it's a lot of others. Lake Radio. This is a new acquisition for trainer Kenny Smith, and the owner is Dream Walking Farms. Guy, that's singer Toby Keith's operation. They actually are pretty successful. If you look at Lake Radio, this is only a 4-year-old, right, guys? So a newly turned 4-year-old, there's definitely upside there. I like that compared to others. Look at his upward mobility. He got a 70, 72, blew off the screen a 76. I understand it's Prairie Meadows. I get all that. And then last time he regressed, but it was 5 furlongs. Maybe he didn't like the slop. He's been working well since that. They gave him a little break. I think you could do worse with this horse, guys. I'm not going to sit here and suggest that Lake Radio is going to win the race, but at 25 to 1 and like 5 times the price of a lot of these others, why can't this horse be in the mix? He's only 3, 4, 5 points buyers off these other ones. He's got Santana, so I think that's a benefit. 3 for 6 lifetime. I don't know. I think this horse is a bit interesting, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at that one. Yeah, I looked at that
Santana. I'll tell you, that's interesting. There's a lot on again, off again relationship between the Asmussens and Ricardo Santana. They've enjoyed great success, and then he was not only was he out of the big bed, he was out of the entire house. But he's kind of worked his way back in, and he had been riding more for him. But it's very interesting that on a horse that Steve claimed and owns, that the horse we were talking about, Pete, the 7, that Castillo shows up. And this is the first time, even though Castillo rode him last time, it wasn't for Asmussen. So Santana, you can bet Howard would love to stick it to the old boss, new boss, and take this 8 home. So you might be onto something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting, guys. Quick comments. Christine Race mentioned that she has a keychain of Call to Post that she played at the start of each stock market day. I love it.
Need one. We don't need right, Christine, I'll take one. We don't need a, ringing of the bell of the New York Stock Exchange. Just play Call to Post. I love that. And Jim was saying, Howard, I see the same thing. 3 speed horses might hook up, could fall apart. I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of horses, guys, that can win that race. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Let's go on to the second leg of the pick 5 here. It's going to be race 7, which I'm going to bring up right now. And I know, Pete, I know how you feel about this. I think you guys are going to be interested. I sent out a tweet, or not a tweet, sorry, it was a text saying this race looks very difficult. And then we go to the banners, guys, and I think I was shocked, actually. Take a look at the banners at the bottom of the screen.
We all on the same
one? Of course. We've all got the same horse on the bottom of the screen. We all have the 9 guys in this race. It's made in 30 Arky Breads. This reminds me of some wonderful, Illinois bred maiden claimer days. This is not exactly the most talented horses, but they're still running for a decent purse of $33K. It's 6 furlongs. You got good high-profile connections. There are 12 horses in the main body. There's also 2 also eligibles. The morning line favorite is the number 7, Bradley Pink, for Cox and Talamo. Morning line favorite. We are all going with the 9, Sassy Lass, for McBride and Bailey. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up the PPs. Paul, I'm going to let you go first. What does you like about this 9? There must be many things to like. We all have this 9 on top.
Very simply, Howard, without seeing workout reports, obviously the Cox is going to get bet, but they're almost all first-time starters, at least on paper, pedigree-wise. Nothing is, demanding that you bet them. The 9, you say, well, 24 buyer. Well, it was a maiden special weight. Took some money, 9 to 1. Had some trouble early. I wanted someone who had run before. There's only 3 of them, and I thought this was the best option, which I know is a really weak backing. But Chelsea Bailey's off to a good start. I I wish this were the first race of the sequence. We could really use to see the board. There's really no reason for it not being the first race of the sequence, other than the racing secretary being a pain in the ass and making it the second race of the sequence.
Well, we'll be
but-
able to see the probable will pay doubles. That you got to look
Yeah.
at that. Yeah.
Correct. But so I got, I went with the 5/3, who is coming off a bang up 11 buyer, and I threw the Cox in the middle. The Cox horse here is going to take money just because it's Cox. A double Irish is who is the sire of the 9 is like a 10% first time sire, so there's nothing too special there.
It's got
Yeah,
3
Paul,
horses.
let's show this.
Go ahead.
We'll get to the other firsters, and Pete, you're very astute, because I do want to talk about the breeding of these monsters that are going to be favored over the 9. Pete, let's take us to the replay. I'm sure you watch it. Sassy, the 9 horse, is the 3 in this race.
Yeah.
A lot of trouble early, and then something subtle late that I actually liked. Watch the 3 here, guys. And Pete, I turned the sound off, of course. You can talk about it, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch right out of the gate, drops to, well, if we ever get out of the gate, watch the 3. It's actually in the
2 path.
The 2 path right there. So you can
Ooh,
see,
right there.
so it gets pinched right there, drops. And now this horse is basically,
Show one more time.
Yeah, you could see it there. It really gets knocked around. Moving all, and now it's basically dead last. And you can see how the jock's even riding. It's basically like sitting on the horse at this point. So we just so you're starting. I mean, it's a first time starter, and you're already dealing with that kind of trouble out of the gate. So, and now if you're actually, you sort of went, there was one thing there too. See that horse? I think it was the 12, maybe. The horse,
back a little bit?
Well, you don't have to, but see how that horse is just sort of dying right in his face. And then, so he couldn't even get any momentum there. I should say my bad. Drink.
Oh boy,
she couldn't get any momentum there. I was thinking more of the jockey first, but that's not even right.
She is making a bit of a middle move. It's hard to tell here, Pete, but she took a lot of dirt, because like her chest is just full of mud right here.
Well, and part of the way too is they sort of the front pack was so far ahead as well. So it's not like you were going to make a big dent into. I mean, look at how stretched out they are now. But even on the back stretch, that first pack was that first pack of like 7 was sort of way out away from everybody. So my thing is, why not take a shot on a horse that what I liked was the horse was working really well coming in. You see the 9 out of 109, a 48 and 1, 4 furlong works. It was working pretty well, took a little bit of money and showed some run. It just happened that everything went wrong right at the beginning, and you don't know how a horse is going to react like that.
Well, and maybe I'm looking at this silly because she was 10 lengths back. I like the way she finished.
She was closing.
I don't think you can underestimate this, guys, because she could have just completely spit the bit. You're going to see coming to the screen, she is passing horses. She's still running on. That means something to me, guys, especially in this type of field. Paul, I think if this horse gets out of the gate and it's going to be dry on Saturday, I see no reason why this horse can't run low 40s buyer. That's good enough to win this race.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, when that happens to a first-time starter, especially down on the inside, that race is over. Okay, that horse had no chance to win whatever it was, 10 steps, 20 steps out of the gate. The jock did the right thing. You got to turn it quickly, pivot to learning experience. And the jock got her, Chelsea got her outside, very outside. The one thing I don't like, Howard, I don't like the no works in between races for a first time starter.
Yeah.
It is a relatively quick turnaround. Ran on the 31st, running Saturday on the 14th. So, you figure they give him 2 or 3 days off out of the race. So there really probably wasn't enough time. But, I will say this, Burl McBride is anxious to run this horse back, because running a second time starter back in 2 weeks is a pretty quick turnaround.
Yep.
Pete, can we talk about the I'm chuckling because this breeding has to be mentioned. Maybe the 7's just going to run off the screen because it's Cox and Talamo. I mean, she is working well, probably as well as anyone in this field. I'll say that. And we all know the numbers are good, and feel free to throw any numbers. But to me, this is a pedigree situation. Let's look at the dam. Okay. Sequoia. Sequoia is a turf horse. There's absolutely no argument. Now, she was a decent turf horse, fair enough. Let's take a look at her siblings. She had one sibling, DeGray. I don't know if it's pronounced that way. was ran in a Arkansas bred maiden 12.5 and lost by 12 lengths. Was absolutely awful. That's the damn side. Okay, now let's take a look at the male side here. Hold on a second. I'm a little bit slow. Okay, here we go. Double Irish. You mentioned, by the way, did you see the $1,000
the
stud
1,000.
fee?
Yeah.
The $1,000 stud fee. I don't mean to make fun of this horse, but I mean, okay, he's had some nice horses, but no one like.
Yeah, they're not world beaters. Yeah, they're not.
And you're talking about a horse that's in for 30. And here's the thing that I think needs to be mentioned. I want to put us all on screen here, full screen. I don't know how you guys feel, Pete. I'll let you answer this question, then we're going to move on because there's not too much to say here. There's a lot of firsters. We have to see the board. I do not like, and Paul, you touched on this. I do not like when Arkansas breds are debuting for 30. It's a real good program in Arkansas, Pete. If Cox really liked this horse and he's an Arkansas bred, there's no way in hell he put this horse in, just drop in for 30 automatically. Now you could say he was only $1,000, a stud fee, or she $1,000 stud fee, and so I shouldn't get too carried away. But geez, if Cox really thought high of this horse, would he just drop her in for 30 and just give up on the horse right away?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, you can go crazy trying to think of what the trainer's thinking and what's the back of their head. But no, I agree with you. You just don't expect. I mean, if you look at the rest of the trainers in here, it's not exactly murderer's row. And then Cox jumps in with the obvious favorite because of that. So, I mean, that's the way I was looking at it. I'm like, is this horse just 2-1 because it's Cox? And that's most likely the case. I mean, there's nothing else on paper that is a standout. Nothing. I mean, then you look at Talamo, who's rocking a 3 for 44 at the meet so far, so he's not exactly lighting it up. So there's a lot of things where I just don't. And this horse is going to get bet more just because of Cox, I assume. So, and then once they start betting it, it's probably just going to snowball from there.
I mean, the way
I think you're onto something, Howard. Remember, this looks like a turf horse, right? But where is Cox going to run him? The options for him at this time of year is the fairgrounds, and he's not shipping an Arkansas bred. So I suspect he just wants to get the horse started, and he's got one of his main strings at Oaklawn, and Oaklawn doesn't have turf, so he's running him on dirt.
I mean,
and that might be a very good reason to beat him.
This horse is clearly 2-1 because of the connections and because of his stats. But that doesn't mean the horse is any good. I mean, the way I see it, I think if the 9 breaks, I'm going to assume, we don't know, that the 9 can outbreak the 7 if she breaks cleanly. And I think the 9 had more early speed than we saw, guys, because of the situation. I just think the 7 is going to be 7-5 for no reason. Now, maybe she runs off the screen, guys. I don't know. Any final thoughts before we move on, guys, about anyone else here?
The 5 is a little bit of a price that I sort of liked, but again, nothing too crazy. I mean, if you look at that race, got destroyed by 23, but it was in the mud and actually broke well and broke fast. I mean, that's a pretty big number to break out of the gate, and actually was working well going into the race, popped a nice work coming out of the race. The sire side, from when I looked at it, the sire side is awful with first-time starters. So maybe I don't know what that could mean for a first time to a second time, but I figured maybe this one actually did show some gate speed and just sort of folded, and that could have had to do with a few things, maybe the pressure combination with the muddy surface. So that was one of the price that I have on my ticket, and Paul has in the 3rd spot. So that was just one I wanted to mention.
I've got this horse in the mix. Owner Jerry Karoom, the leading owner right now, I believe, at Oaklawn as well.
Okay.
So something to keep in mind. Definitely nothing wrong with having a horse that has early speed.
I mean, that four late pace figure doesn't throw a lot of confidence at you. You don't see that very often.
I actually watched the replay. They just
yeah, you just give up after a while, but it's still funny to see on paper.
No question. Let's move on, guys, to the next race. Now we're going to have some high quality races here. Race 8. Race 8, this is allowance optional 62.5. Let me go ahead and switch the screens there. There we go. Allowance optional 62.5. Older fillies and mares. You see the field here. I thought this was a very tough race, guys. The morning line favorite's on the inside, and the morning line favorite is the rail horse for Cox and Talmo. There we go. The number 1, Love Me some Mimi. Love Me Some Me, I guess. Love Me
Some Me, it looks
Love
like.
Me Some Me. Okay, whatever. Here we go. Paul, you are going with the 7, Rockstar. No, I'm sorry. You're going with the
No,
2,
Paul's the 2.
Portilla. Yeah,
Yeah.
for Portilla for Stahl and Santana.
Yeah, I was this when you guys were emailing you. Was this really the race you were saying was this tough, or did you mean the 7th? You said the 8th when you were 7 deep.
Well,
Pete. It wasn't
No.
this race, Pete.
No, it was this one. I liked a lot of horses in it. There were things on a lot of horses that I liked that were sneaky to me. So it wasn't like I think all of them are great. It was just I had a sneaky thing where I liked on each of even some big long shots.
Yeah, I get that, but when I look at the 7th and when I look at the last race,
oh no, the last one was a mess, Paul. The last
I'm gonna have to be thinner here, and I think the 1 is an absolute send. Cox Talamo from the inside is cutting back a furlong, but the 2's numbers are really not far off. The 2 has got some pretty good races. The 2 has lost to a few decent horses. He's got an 85 to match the 1. I think it's 1. I'm going to live and die with one of those 2, at least as A's. And if I'm playing a caveman, those will be the only 2 I use.
Well, what I like about that, Paul, is you got the speed and you got the closer, right? So you got if the race holds together, you think the 1 is probably the best horse. If it falls apart, maybe you've got one of the better closers. Although I will say the 2 doesn't have the best late speed figs. I think Pete and I are going to be talking about a few horses that could get in the mix if things fall apart. But Portilla is definitely a player. Pete, you're going with the 7 in this race. That is Rockstar Parking, 6-1 morning line. Cipriano Contreras, Walter De La Cruz is in for the 62.5. That's a bit of a pet peeve angle that I don't like. But again, she's in for that tag because she's already won 5 races and went through the conditions. She's solid. She's coming off a nice race where she won by 3. I don't see any reason why she can't be in the mix here.
No, and a couple things I liked. Well, first of all, I like the 5 for 6 in the top 2 at Oaklawn. I like the 6 out of 9 at the distance. So, that combination is good right there. A lot of times I look for, is there a race that I think on their sheet that could win it? If you go back to that April race with the 87 buyer where the horse just rolled, sitting off a pretty slow pace, but still ran a nice race, ran a nice buyer. And then after that, there was just a few, the next one out ran a nice race, then was just off for a while, came back in a 5.5, what maybe was a little bit too sharp. Then they put this one on the synth, then comes back to the dirt in a nice allowance race and really wins well, wins with a 77 buyer. So I think there's a lot there. And I think the 6-1 is looking more maybe at, you throw that synth form in and it maybe it muddies it up a little. I also had a really interesting stat. So the trainer, you see Contreras is the trainer and then Contreras Stable is the owner. The trainer-owner combination, 10 for 28 wins and 21 for 28 in the money at Oaklawn. So I sort of like that. Even though De La Cruz is cold, you see 2 for 27 there. Won on this horse last time with De La Cruz. So that was one of the 2 wins. So at least with this horse, maybe De La Cruz can sort of repeat that. So there was a few different angles that I really liked.
The very astute Matt Miller has a little wordplay here and would like to mention that Rockstar Parking once lost to Park in the rear. Very interesting. Yes, we see the right down at the bottom, right? Yep. Where is it? Right there. Very interesting. So I guess they like parking lots. I don't know. I do like the fact, Pete, that this horse showed a lot of speed last time and sustained that bid. Maybe she's just rounding back into form. We know how this mare is going to go. Yeah. Maybe she's just starting to feel good about herself again. And but there is other speed to contend with. She's in the mix for me. She's a B as in boy. Guys, I didn't have a good feel for this race. Again, it's just so many races seem to not fall apart lately. And Oaklawn doesn't necessarily, have to fall apart with their races. But the thing about the one that I like, guys, I know she's the favorite, and I would never, bet her to win at these odds, but she's cutting back. I like that. I don't think she has to be on the lead. You see, lately she's sort of been stalking. It's almost hard for me to imagine that Love Me Some Me is not going to get a good trip, guys. Either Telmo's going to outbreak the field, she's going to send hard, and it's going to come and catch me, or maybe she doesn't break perfectly, or some other jocks just want to send, and Telmo will just sit. Like, it's just hard for me to imagine that the one Love Me Some Me is not going to get a great trip, and that's why I put her on top. My sort of sneaky wise guy horse here, guys. Kyle Roscoe, are you paying attention for maybe an underneath try play? The number 5, Lizette. What's my angle here on Lizette? My angle on Lizette is the same angle I used on Take Charge Brandy 2 weeks ago in the power picks and some other horses I mentioned. By the figs, guys, she is by far the best closer in the race, and she's turning back, and she's a price, and she's Dwayne, and she has some class to her. Guys, if they mix it up, I can see Lizette coming from the clouds, and if not winning, absolutely getting to the try. This is my bomb play underneath. Gentlemen, here's my reverse key play again. It's worked well for me in the past, especially with closers. For some reason, it works better with closers. I wouldn't be shocked if this horse won at big odds, but I would be surprised if she's not somewhere in the money. So
yeah, that's
my sneaky play.
I have underneath play in my notes, same thing, and I like the fact that one last time it's sort of a optional claimer allowance level as the favorite, but actually the last time was actually not in a stakes sort of race. One at that one there, and then. Like you said, it's a 34-point difference between the late pace figure of her and the next horse, which is the 2 Portilla. So, I mean, just like you said, if it does heat up, because there are 3 horses over 100 time form early pace plus a 99. So if something does happen, this was one of my last cuts in the pick 5 trying to get to under budget. So I'm with you. I think this one's got a shot.
Paul, I'm using her as a B. And Paul, do you take any credence and if you don't like my pick, feel free to rip on me. That's fine. Horses come from California with tracks so you don't close, now coming east. I like that angle. These tracks, I know we just said Oaklawn could be speed favoring, but you can close at Oaklawn. It's so damn hard to close 2 turns on the West Coast, Paul, and that's where Lizette's been running for the most part.
You're on mute, Paul.
All right, go ahead, Pete. You can make fun of him.
I think you make. I'm sorry. I think you make good points, Howard, and I did not have her. I'll definitely use her underneath. I might add her to my C team. You see Blue Stripe in the PPs 4 races back, who'd be a mile better. And talking about your one, Howard, if you go 3 races back, Bell's the one won the race. Not shown here. Sconson was 4th in the race. Yep. Now Bell's the one in Sconson would be approximately 1 to 92 in this field. So. That'll add credence. But you know what? Your theory, Howard, though, at 6 furlongs, they are going to have to mix it up for this 5, and
I think they
which
will,
is possible. Which is possible. Yes. I mean the 8's got to go right from out there.
Well, what about the 6?
Yeah, the 6 and the 8, I think. Right? Yeah.
When this, and I'm using the 6 guys in the pick 5 because when this horse is good, she's really good. I mean,
this is a former Dealing Justice was a former Zilla racing horse that I believe was privately sold.
Ray Handel.
Ray Handel to Louis Cella, who is the owner of Oaklawn Park.
Yeah. Look, guys, we're going to move on, but I can see this thing falling apart. I don't know. Well, we'll see. If it does fall apart, I want to be there when the music stops, so to speak, with a big time closer.
I do like the 3, by the way. We don't have to talk about the 3, but just for the listeners, I like the 3. It's going to be on my tickets. It's one we didn't talk about. Sorry, it's only 4 to 1, so it's not groundbreaking, but it's just a horse to keep an eye on.
I'm sorry, you do have the 3.
No, that's okay.
Let's go on to the stake race, guys. And to me, there's 2 main stories of this race. And Paul, since you're the journalist, I'll let you put your journalist hat on. Tell us who should be the main story in this race, because I think you could argue one of 2 horses could be your main stories. I go ahead and switch to the banners here there we go, and we switch over. All right, guys, it's the 5th season stakes, about 5:22 Eastern time. They're going 1 mile. It is a 2-turn, 1 mile, short stretch, short run into the first turn. I believe it's a regular stretch finish though. 1 mile, 150,000 in the purse. It's a field of 10. The Moyline favorite is a big favorite, and rightly so, in my opinion. The number 8, Ginobili for Miller and Santana. But the other horse that I just want to throw out there is a horse you could feature in a main story, Paul, is the number 6 Rated R Superstar. What an awesome cool horse, 4-1 morning line. And we all know why this horse is cool, Paul. This is a 10-year-old who continues to run well. I mean, it's an unbelievable horse.
Yes, I actually thought you were going to talk about King Fury, who's also a potential story because King Fury ran in the juvenile, was on the Derby trail, didn't make the Derby, ran in the Travers, ran in the Clark. He runs in a lot of grade ones and doesn't finish on the board. Who does that remind you of, Pete? Okay, to moving right along. But no, Howard, I would agree. For this, I don't think the horse could run. I think Myra, you can't run a 10, if I correct, right?
You cannot.
So, and this horse ran big last time at Remington, and that was on the wasn't that on the Springboard Mile undercard, Howard,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken?
I believe it was, and that's not an easy track to close. And I mean,
he ran huge.
He ran huge pace, into blue figures there.
God love Danny Caldwell, and I'm sure the horse is still sound. $1.8 million earner to bring this gelding back for a 10-year-old year. I suspect, they're going to try a race like this and see how it goes type of thing, right? But
and he's the defending champ, which I always love. I love the defending champion in a race. It's always cool.
But he usually wins at a price. He's actually been taking some money recently.
Yeah.
He actually usually wins at a price, but he just always seems to get a decent trip. And I don't even care about the PPs, guys. Just someone who's beginning to own horses. And Paul, you've been owning horses for a while, and you've been around horse flesh more than any of us. I mean, you just mentioned for these connections to have a horse running, it's basically what equivalent of like a late 50, early 60-year-old running against 20 and 30-year-olds. It's absolutely, it's a complete freak of nature, and it's spectacular. I love it. Whether this horse wins or not is amazing. He's going to have to face a really nice horse, though, in Ginobili, who gets in this very interesting condition, which I had to look up because I wonder, I don't know if you guys noticed, Ginobili's in for 115, while these others are in for 121, 125. But I'll talk more about that, Paul, after you talk about this horse, which I think will be probably more like 4 to 5 come post time, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Baltus is suspended, so the horse has been moved to Peter Miller. Baltus is actually a part owner of the horse, so it's great that he gets to reap the benefits of the horse while he's still suspended for a drug violation. But that last race, Howard, 6 horses in the race, 5 of them came back to run at least a 91 buyer in their next start. So that was a real race last time at Del Mar. Triple digit buyer. This horse has 3 triple digit buyers. 0 for 2 at Oaklawn if you're looking for a chink in the armor. A miserable back in May of 20. Just a miserable effort at Oaklawn, and then you have to go back-to-back miserable efforts. That was almost 3 years ago. But everything being equal, this clearly, all good stories aside, this horse is going to take some beating.
No question, Pete. I mentioned the weight because I think, I'm not sure. I think none of us are really big weight guys per se, but when you're talking about talented horses and you're talking about, okay, 2 or 3 pounds, fine. 6 or 7 pounds, Pete, I think it needs to be mentioned. And the reason, I don't know if you guys looked at the conditions closely of the race, and actually I need to go back to the Equibase. Let me show everyone. I don't know if people can read that, but I'll just paraphrase for everyone. It depends. Their weights are depending on how they did last year. And if you see, they're allowed 7 pounds if they won less than non-winners of 35,000 at a mile or more since October 14th, 2022, and it goes back. So obviously, this is really sharp by the connections. I will say, Pete. You can say whatever you want about Baltus and other things, but to find a spot like this where they get weight, I think is a pretty sharp idea.
Yeah, because generally it's not the best horse in the race by far who's getting the weight advantage. So you very rarely see that. Usually you're using that as an excuse to bet maybe a longer shot, not one to accentuate the best horse in the race. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason why he's going to win, but it's going to definitely be a benefit. And you're right. It's a good spot to come in, almost maybe just get some free money, and maybe it'll wind up just burying this field and getting some free money and use this as a springboard to some bigger and better things.
Yeah, there's not a lot of like 1 mile. There aren't a lot of. They just ran with the San Antonio on, which was a mile and the 16th. I'd like to say on opening day. I guess you could wonder why didn't he run there, unless he just doesn't want to go a mile and 16th. It's a weird spot, but it's just. I mean, uh, there is other speed in the race, but I don't know if there's enough speed to set up for Radar Superstar. And Radar Superstar is not as talented as Ginobili. Those are the only two I'm really interested. There's others, but we're going to move on, guys. Jim Plars wanted to mention Paul. Nothing wrong with late 50s or 60-year-olds, right,
Right.
Paul? I'm not sure who
That's-
he's really talking about.
Well, it's like you said, like running. It's like me running up and down the basketball court with players age 16 to 22, which I do on a nightly basis.
I don't know how you do it. It's actually pretty damn impressive to me. Let's go to race 10, guys. This is the last race. It's the closeout leg of the pick 5. And whoops, okay, hold on a second. I'm just getting to it right now. All right. Here we go. Closeout leg of the pick 5. Main special. This is the one that Paul finds extremely difficult, I believe.
No, I thought the other one was. I thought the other one was more difficult than this.
Oh, did you? Okay.
The Arky Bread.
Special. Main special, 3-year-olds and up, $90,000 purse, mile and a 16th. They're going 2 turns. Morning line favorite is the number 6, Rock and Roll, a New York bred, by the way, for Cox and Talmo. And the other very well bet horse, morning line, a well meant horse, the number 3, Shopper's Revenge for Asmussen, and this time Santana. Pete and Paul, you're both going with the 6. Pete, let's have you go first. What is it you like about Rock and Roll?
I mean, this is one you see the purchase price $675K. It's got Cox again. The Cox Talamo, the Talamo, might be the only harbinger there is the one bringing these Cox horses down the way he's riding. But I mean, if you look back 2 races back, I mean, the debut it was Arabian Night, who's a monster winner, won the race by 7, and then also had a troubled trip. And if you look at it, that was actually a pretty deep field as well. If you look the next race out, there was some next out winners. There was some other next out. Yeah, there was a couple decent buyers, but Arabian Night's a top flight horse. And then this one went into a stakes determinedly. And so there's some decent horses in there. And then that one just
expect more. The horse that finished 3rd is the horse we talked about last week that was well meant and ran at Gulfstream. Didn't run great, but he is well meant for Pletcher. 3-year-old.
Exactly. And then, I mean, this one just also had just sort of a terrible trip. So it was just sort of out of it. I mean, you could see he took money, then comes back, actually breaks. But look at that. Sort of breaks at a little bit of a breakneck pace. You see the 126, 122, gets some pressure, and then loses to a horse who, loses to a horse who's also got some quality. Yeah, go ahead. So,
no, I wanted you to finish your thought because there's 4 horses coming out of this race.
Yeah, so you could show that one because there's
I didn't want to show it yet. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
So Communication Memo, who came out and then sort of got blasted in the Smarty Jones, but looks like a decent horse on paper otherwise. So I think this horse is run against 2 quality fields, and maybe this one is a little bit less. I don't see anyone in here jumping out as like a super obvious stakes horse aside from maybe the Asmussen horse. But so I think this one, maybe just that first one you could toss. And plus I like the second race, picked up Lasix, ran a lot better, has Lasix again. They take the blinkers off. Maybe that'll sort of not have it go out so quickly this time and sort of burn out because there is some speed in this race. So there's a lot of things to like, which is why it's 8-5. So I'm not really breaking any ground here.
Well,
and
Paul,
those works are good too, by the way. It's been working well.
The works are good. Let's look at this replay. This is the kind of race you have to watch the replay. The 2nd through 5th place finishers in this race are coming back on Saturday. So pay attention to the 1, 2, 5, and 12. But the 2 horses the 2 is going to be on the lead. That's Rock and Roll. The 2 horses I really want to focus on here to me is the number 5. It was This Big, who again is in this race, and it has the 1 hole on Saturday. And especially number 12, Pappy Wolf, who is the 2 on Saturday. We're going to watch 2 spots in this race, Paul. Again, 1, 2, 5, 12. But pay attention, especially to the 1 and the 12, and as they break here. So the 1's going to break slow. You see the 1 broke slow. The 2 actually didn't break great either. And the 12 really broke slow. I'll show it again, guys. Watch the 12. This is the 2 on Saturday. I mean, just really just looks a bit uninterested. And the horse you like, the Rock Horse, does get to the lead, Paul, but didn't break great. Has to be asked. The other horse I want to mention, this 5 right here, who is the one on Saturday. I'm just going to let this roll through a little bit. The 5 makes a middle move, Paul, into the race and gets into a weird spot. You see that's 22 and 4P, like you mentioned. We're going to let it run. Paul, I don't know if you want to say anything or not. You don't have to. We can just watch it. But look at the 5. Here's the 12, by the way, who's the 2 on Saturday. And boy, this horse looks like a really, look at the stride. Look how long this stride is. This 12 looks like he wants distance. But watch the 5 here, Paul, in mid-race. You can comment if you'd like.
Well, he's getting an inside trip. I'm guessing he's going to have some trouble right about there. No?
Well, yeah, he rushed up into a spot.
He's in tight. Yeah.
Really hard.
Yeah, he was kind of put in a spot he didn't need to be put into, frankly. But now the 2 is riding, is, going fairly easily. He did have to use some horse to get to the lead, though, Howard, as you pointed out. And now the 5 is done. But
well, no, the 5 is not done. That's the crazy thing, Paul. But go ahead. Well, here's the 2. Here's the 2 on Saturday. The 5 actually re-rallies, Paul. Sorry, I'm not sure you've seen this replay. I don't re-rally. I mean, fights on. And here's the 2 coming again. It's the 12, but it's the 2 on Saturday. This is the stake. This is a nice horse.
I disagree that the 5 did anything except run in place. He was 5 lengths behind the leaders, and he remained 5 lengths behind the leaders, and he got passed.
I thought he could have given it up, though, right here. I mean, he's under the whip, and he's still...
Well, he might have been, but who's coming to get him? And that,
right.
I mean, it's not a bad effort. The start is a little bit alarming, as you pointed out, how he really walked out. And, he wasn't the far outside, and as Richie Migliori will tell you, horses run to open places. So that's not always we do have in the comment, Howard, you should take a look. It looks like someone from the connections of the 9, Boogie Joe.
Okay, terrific.
There's a comment indicating, because it says we. So you may want to pull that up.
I will do that in just a second.
Yeah.
The other thing we didn't show, I know we're taking time here, but I feel like we need to. Watch the 12, guys. Has some trouble. You see the 12 right here? There is some trouble, and he had to wait. So he goes to the inside. I have no problem with that. But now he wants to run on, and you're gonna see it. You see right here? You see how he's see the hands? He's waiting and waiting until he can really get clear. And I think the 12 lost a little momentum. Pete, he
ran big. He covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, and this is it. Paul, this is another one too, where that first group was so far ahead that it was really hard you weren't going to get to the top couple, but you see the kick there. I mean, he was gaining on that too. I'm assuming in the gallop out went right by that too with no problem.
Pete, are you concerned the 2 gave it up? I mean, I know it was 22 and 4 first quarter, but I don't know. There's the gallop out, there's the winner, and there's the 12 already. You know what this 12 reminds me of, guys, a little bit? This looks like a horse that could be 30 to 1 the Arkansas Derby and clunk up and do something. I don't know if he's talented, but who knows? Here's the comment by the I guess this is from Brett Bayouth. And Brett, thanks for joining the show tonight. He said Boogie Joe was all over the track in the slop last time out, and is what we were worried about. He kept coming, just couldn't get a hold of the track. We expect a better effort, safe trips. Let's take a look at the 9 out of respect to Brett. And Brett, again, thanks for joining the show.
I actually had good notes. I had good notes on this horse.
You know what? This is the horse that we talked about. I like this horse.
I thought because I thought
we
the
talked
debut
about this horse last time, Pete.
I thought on the debut, this horse was, especially in this field, I thought on that debut race could win, or at least a step up from that could win this race. Yeah, we did. We talked about
I remember this was my top choice, actually, and I didn't know it was going to be sloppy, and he didn't run. I remember this horse now. Thank you very much, Brett. This horse is a little bit interesting, too. I'm going to have to use this horse now that I remember him, because we talked about this horse on the last time we talked about Oaklawn, actually.
And I like that this one, I think there is some speed here again. So
yeah,
I think this one can come off the pace too. And if he run again, if this horse just runs back to that debut, I think it was a lower level maiden special weight, so you don't know, but I think if it could run back to that, then yeah, 20-1, especially like in an underneath try, or I think could even win, because I don't think there's no world beaters in here. Like you said, that horse gave it up last time, and with some pressure this time could give it up again.
Paul, real quick before we go on to our picks, you have the 10 Escapeologist, who is another long-winded horse for McPeak, another closer. There's a lot of really nice closers in this race. When I say nice, I mean potential upside with their 3-year-olds that could break out at any moment.
Yeah, I honestly think that if the 6 breaks cleanly, I think this could be a merry-go-round race, to be very honest with you. I'm going to have him, you'll see when we get to our picks in the Caveman, I've actually have him singled, which is kind of a bold but probably stupid move, but I'm trying to stay under budget because, I always try to keep to the budget. But again, yes, there are a lot of horses who look like they could run late, but someone is going to have, they did have to use this 6 a little last time. They did slow it down though in the second quarter. He ran a 24-1 second quarter, so he did get a breather. But I get a feeling, Pete, that Communication Memo is a pretty good horse.
Yeah,
I know, like you said, the Smarty Jones is
bad.
Yeah, but that was that's a different race, and Arabian Night is the next fastest, best Bob Baffert horse ever, and
I mean, it looks good.
Determinedly, as you pointed out, Pete, is a good horse. So I'm looking at it the way, Pete, you kind of looked at that other race, the 8th. A lot of horses can win. I could see that, but that means I'm going to try to be narrow and hope I have the right opinion. I'm going to lean on the 6 pretty heavily here.
I agree.
Pete, I think the 3 is the one that could show more speed. I'm not going to show the replays from Churchill. Broke a little bit slow, made a big move into the lane against Determinedly, Paul, we just mentioned. So this 3 is well meant. I think this 3 is going to show a lot more. Whisper Hill Farm, 3 Chimneys. These are series connections.
I mean, look at the breeding.
Stop Charging Maria.
Stop Charging Maria is awesome.
Holy cow! This horse could be a real nice horse.
And
I'm expecting major improvement here for this 3.
Like you said, look. I mean, breaks in 11th, and then is closing into. Look at those slow It's closing into trying to close into slow fractions, and then Determinedly, who I can't pronounce the name, just sort of shook loose, and at the top of the lane was already up 6. I mean, if you look at the chart, the top of the lane's already up 6. So, not closing into that. And then the 3rd horse, Sun Thunder, came back to break his maiden with a 77 buyer, which would most likely romp in this field. If somebody runs a 77 here, they're most likely going to win. So there's a lot to like about this one. And again, it's 2-1, so we're not breaking ground, but it's got good connections. And I do think the extra distance, now you're going from 7 to 1 mile and a 16th, and this horse is definitely bred to go the longer distance. So I think this one is sort of the logical. I think it's a tough race. Like with Paul, where the top 2, if they run their races, could just be better than everybody else. And then you're just sort of talking yourself into other horses just to try and be contrarian. And it could just go that way. So I think if one of those 2 does win big, it's not surprising. But if they get upset, it's also not surprising. So it makes it tough to build a ticket around them.
Yes, and I think the chance of the 3 or 6 winning is probably 65-70%.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
But Paul and Pete, I think there are a lot of horses we've talked about underneath that are going to be interesting going forward. They might not win Saturday, but they're horses to look forward to on that Oaklawn Triple Crown series where they're going to have the Rebel and they're going to have the Arkansas Derby. They have a really nice setup there. Let's see.
Howard, you mentioned Whisper Hill Farm. Mandy Pope, she only paid $4.4 million for Stop Charging Maria as a broodmare prospect. That's all. $4.4 million.
That was a nice horse, guys. Let's get to the pick 5 picks. Pete, we're gonna have you go first because we've had Paul first. For other people, we haven't had you first in a while. I want to let you know that I recognize that. Try to mix it up. So let's go.
Thank you.
Pick 5 first, right now on the screen. Pete's pick 5, 1, 2, 6, 7, with 5, 7, 9, with 1, 3, 7, with 8, with 2, 3, 6, 10. I think a lot of people are in single Ginobili. I completely understand it. I get it. he's a likely winner in the penultimate leg.
Yeah, and you hate being on the single that everyone else has, but you have to hope that if that's the case, that you have to hope that you have picks that differ in the other legs. And unfortunately, in my first leg, I'm not that creative, which I probably wouldn't play it this way because it's basically the first 4 choices, which isn't the best ticket construction. But I went with the 4 there because I do think I agree with Paul. I think the favorite is a little soft. So I think we can beat the favorite. The second is where I like I've got a 9-2 shot and an 8-1 shot and the 5 and the 9. So I'm hoping to get one of those home. If you get one of those home and then we can get a price and beat one of these other favorites, then I think we have something. And then going a little bit deeper in the last leg, just in case the 6 or the 3. But I'm with you. I really like that too. Pappy's Wolf or whatever the name was. I really like the way that horse closed. So if things just get nuts up front, I think that one's got a shot. And if you get closing out a pick 5 at double-digit odds would be fantastic. In my original ticket, I had Rated R Superstar and Ginobili, but it was a little too high. And so I wound up saying, let me just single Ginobili, and I would play probably on a B line, Rated R Superstar, and maybe 1 or 2 others in there just in case.
Yeah, Pappy Wolf has to break. The other thing for people that are interested in that 12 in the replay and the 2, and I didn't show it, I don't want to go back and show it. The Pappy Wolf has 2 much improved works also, Pete. You go back and look at it for yourself or other people out there. Take a look at the last 2 works of Pappy Wolf, 101 breezing and 49 breezing, which are much, much better than the previous breezes. So maybe the light bulb's going on with this horse, Pete, but they're going to have to use this horse, the 2, to get into the game. He can't.
I mean, the brakes are just horrible. Back. Yeah, the brakes are just horrible. And eventually, the better horses you run against, you're not going to be able to close into better horses. So, yeah, they have to do something to get that one going. But luckily, Tyler Bays at 1 for 30 is the man to fix all that. So we're in good hands.
Paul's pick 5, 1, 2, 4, 6, 7 with 5, 7, 9, 12 with 1, 2. With 6, 7, 8, 9, singling, as he sort of hinted there, the 6 on the end, $80, Paul.
Yeah, this is about as counterintuitive as you can get. But I'll tell you what my thinking is. It's probably very flawed, but that's happened before. I want to beat the 2 in the first leg, so I got 4 horses surrounding them. And I think the way to get paid is to beat Ginobili. Now, using 4 horses in a caveman ticket in a race like that, they might suggest you see a psychologist on Monday and a psychiatrist on Tuesday. But I do think I do think he will be by far the heaviest lean in the sequence. So therefore, I guess what I'm saying is the 2 favorites, heavy favorites that I want to beat, I want to have a lot of chances to beat them. So then if I ever get to that pot, I'll be alive. If I'm alive going to the single in the maiden race in the last leg, I'll walk the dog around the block, get a beer or, whatever. And, maybe go to church and say a quick novena. But as you often say, Howard, sometimes you have to zig when everyone else zags.
Paul, is Ginobili a lone A for you in an ABC?
In my ABC, Howard, at this point, I have Rated R Superstar as an A.
Along with Ginobili. Okay. Coincidentally, I do also.
Well, you are one of the most astute people on the show tonight. One of the 3 most.
I would agree with that. Hard not to be. All right, let's go to my ticket, guys, as we wrap up the show here. Here we go. You know the game. Who does Howard single, if anyone? Pete?
Ginobili.
Paul?
No, not Ginobili.
No,
not Ginobili. Wait. No, the one horse, one in the early races.
Love Me Some Me or whatever.
Yeah, love me something.
Paul?
Yes, I agree with Pete.
Nope. I'm singling the Arky Bread Maiden 30 that we're all going with, the 9. How about that? Damn.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so you're zagging too then.
Absolutely, Paul. There's no question I'm zagging. I'm going 1, 2, 5, 7, 8 with 9 sassy something, with 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, with 6, 8, with 2, 3, 6. Guys, I actually felt a lot better about my ticket after I saw both of you also picked the 9, which I couldn't believe. So hopefully you guys are astute along with me. To me, it's probably the 7 or 9 in that race. And guys, the breeding on the 7 is just so questionable to me. And the 9s can be 5 times the price.
It's the
Why not
weakest
single
favorite.
there?
It's the weakest favorite by far. So I think that's the one to beat for sure. And that will take money because it's going to be that's the Cox horse is the favorite, right? So that horse is going to take money. See if you can beat it, especially with a single and catch something in the other legs. I think that's the way to go.
Guys, that's a big separator if it comes in. Again,
I like that 5, so that's why I wouldn't single the 9 because I like the 5 and the 5's a price. So I'd like to catch the 5 on my A line as well in that one.
The 5, well, again, my ABC ticket's going to be different, but I'm using the 5. I'm using a few others. Anyway, I'm spreading, single, spread. I think it's either Radar Superstar or Ginobili. Of course, I'm actually using them both as A's. And then I'll throw that 2 in, Pete, along with the 3 and the 6 in the last race. I mean, the 10, it's probably not going to be won by a deep closer. We love deep closers. And
you'll be pissed if that horse wins.
Get out of the gate.
If that horse wins, you'll be pissed, right?
I'm not sold on the 6. I understand why the 6 is being singled by Paul, and I'm sure Paul's going to be correct, but I'm not sold. I don't know. It's not like he's a New York bred. He doesn't have to be a monster. I think there's some other. I know there's nothing wrong with New York breds, but I mean, he's not. The breeding could be better. It's just my point. And on the dam side horse, on the dam side, Paul, that horse is like Aldebaran. It's got like sprinty on the dam side. I don't know about 2 turns at all for this horse. I have some questions with that horse. I actually like the 3 more than the 6 on the win end based on what the odds are going to be. Anyway, we've been rambling on. That's my $75 pick 5. Does that bring up the closing banner? Pete, any final thoughts about Oaklawn? Anything else coming up? Anything in your world, your life you want to share?
No, nothing too exciting. But I always like getting to a track we haven't done in a while. So we don't do Oaklawn very often, aside from maybe when hey, look at that. I mean, that was a better bet than Ginobili was the odds. The odds are cheaper on that than Ginobili
sure.
that Paul would pick a New York.
How did City Man work out, folks? How did City Man work out?
That was a
Very
nice
good.
one. Yes.
Miguel talked about, I don't know if you guys caught our Adelphi show. Miguel was on and talked about City Man a little bit.
It's a good horse.
Pete, go ahead. You finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say it's always good to get to a track we don't get to often. And I'm sure we'll be back at Oaklawn a couple times, especially on the Derby Trail. But it's nice to hit this one. There's not a lot of big races across the country this weekend. So it's nice to hit this one. And it's one where there's some races where you can get some prices. And anytime we can get that in a sequence, it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Raymond, I just want to, if Raymond, you're still watching, I want to acknowledge that I see your comments. I'm not going to bring them up, but I think we all agree with Raymond for the most part on his thoughts there. Paul, anything you'd like to close with? It's going to be a fun sequence on Saturday. It's going to be one of the reasons I picked Oaklawn, other than the fact we haven't been there too much with our podcast, is it is going to be dry. And California's actually rained out. They already canceled. God bless everyone out there, by the way. I have family that lives in the LA area. It's life-threatening. It's scary. It's awful out there right now. It's dry today, but they've just had storms and storms and just horrible flooding out there, Paul. So God bless Tom Espinoza in San Francisco and all the people out there watching California. It's been bad out there.
It sure has. And good move out, because if we had done the cross country pick 5, we would have been out of business, because there is no coast to coast pick 5 on Saturday. Yes, hey, even a blind squirrel.
Blind squirrel.
Okay, but no, I think it's a sequence that has the potential to pay. But, if the 2 wins the first leg, if Ginobili wins, if the 6 wins the last leg, or anything in between. So I will be putting in the Halloran Miller TRF ticket, made my $245 donation today from the last one from that. And Christine, we have to make sure she takes care of herself, because she's my favorite viewer of the show.
Yeah, Christine, I'm not sure where in California you live, Christine, but I'm assuming she's in California. Take care.
So, it's a good sequence. I like Oaklawn. Frank Fletcher is the part owner of one of those horses, the 6 in the last race. Interestingly, Frank Fletcher is a part owner of a New York bred at Oaklawn, which is very interesting to me. But it's a good sequence. Looking forward to it. It's probably overall one of the slower weekends of the year overall in racing. But for those of us who take no weekends off, we'll be playing. And again, Howard, I thank you for bringing up what you did at the beginning of the show. It means a lot. And if it could shed any positive light on my affiliation with this show, then all the better.
Oh, it absolutely will, and Paul, we're really grateful to you for all the hard work you do for the show. Last thing I'll say, just in terms of this bet, I personally, if Ginobili wins and if the 6 or the 3 wins that last race, you have to have a press up ticket, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you can try to beat favorites, that's fine. We have no problem with it, but Pete, if you're using favorites in your sequence, you got to press up because it's very likely you're going to have some very low price horses win in this pick 5, and you don't want to bet a $85, well, 80. You don't want to bet $100 pick 5 and have it pay 70.
No, you can't be too cute sometimes for your own good. And you can't, like you said, you can't try and beat favorites just for the sake of beating them. You have to beat them if, like Paul said, and that Paul didn't like that 2 horse, I think, was it in the first leg, the 2 Ash Flat. If that's a favorite that's beatable, and you could see that, so you try and beat that one. But Ginobili on paper looks like it's just the best horse in the field. Now, I'm not saying you don't take a shot, but like you said, maybe you tighten up your other opinions, play a big press ticket, and then you can maybe play like some BC tickets to try and see, hey, if I beat Ginobili, then I can really bust this ticket out and bust this payout. So I'm with you 100%.
For Kyle, speaking
100% for my man Kyle. Yeah,
guys, it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed. Everyone stay safe out there, no matter where you are in the country. We got a lot going on in this channel. We got Bettin and Boozin has started. Next week we're going to have a big fairground show, guys. The fairgrounds sort of Triple Crown series for them has started. Their Kentucky Derby preps, and then the week of the Pegasus, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my, and even Pete and Paul don't know exactly what we've got going on. We're going to have several shows for several different reasons. It's also the week of the Eclipse Awards. We're going to be talking about that, guys, as well. The week of the 23rd of January coming up is going to be a huge week here on the HHH Racing Podcast. For Pete Visco and Paul Halloran, this has been Howard Kravitz, episode 220 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Thanks for watching, and good luck. Crush those bets at Oaklawn Park this Saturday. Take care. Have a great night.
Good night.